Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Good evening on this full moon. I don't know. It matches outside my window because I'm on the West Coast and it's still dusk-ish.
It
How
is
about
dusk here as well. We're 3 hours later than you, so.
yeah, so it should be completely dark, right?
It is. I mean, it got dark at like 3:30.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the Fireside Chat of November. I'm so excited. I have GennaRose Nethercott here with me, who has a wonderful book out that I have read and praised, and you can find it on my channel where I do that, as well as a book coming up, and she's going to help us and go through some creative exercises. But GennaRose, why don't you tell us a bit about your background and how you got where you are?
Yeah, absolutely. First, thank you so much for having me. This is lovely. I'm coming to you right now from Brattleboro, Vermont, which is where I live and also where I grew up. I was raised here in Vermont. Basically, I was raised as a professional touring child clown for much of my youth. Yes, my reputation precedes me. So my dad is a writer and a performer. My mom is a therapist. I have a younger brother. I don't need to give you my whole biography, but basically grew up here in Vermont, was really steeped in the folklore of this region and sort of the stories and the Gothic sensibilities of New England. And I have trained as a poet and as a playwright, a writer of many different forms, as well as a folklorist. So yeah, the work that I do now is I write weird, spooky stories, and I also do research for the podcast lore. I also write about half the episodes for the podcast lore. I'm more like cursed knowledge and like messed up facts than person at this point, is what I like to say. So like,
what's the personification of lore? If you had to say three something in a nutshell, what would it be? Like three
it's basically someone who is unbearable at parties. And that's, yeah, it's like, one person will be like, so, do you have any siblings? And I'll be like, have you ever heard about the worst hot air balloon disaster in French history? And do you know what star jelly is? Both of which I can talk about
which
in
relate to
excruciating detail.
Do they relate to siblings?
No, it doesn't. It's just like, that's my version of small talk.
Okay.
No, and I was like, siblings, what curse fact do I have about siblings? Oh yeah, I was just writing about Byron sleeping with his half-sister, a classic. But yeah, so basically I do a lot of really fascinating, strange research into both historical elements as well as folkloric elements, specifically magical thinking based folklore. And I write short stories, I write novels. I travel around the country with a puppet show in tow that tells the story or sort of animates some of the chapters from my novel Thistlefoot. So I've spent the past year pretty much chugging around America, all over the States with this 50-pound crate of puppets, largely shadow puppets in the form of scrolls that animate certain sections of Thistlefoot. So, keep them busy.
Yeah, and you're even coming out to the West Coast in a little bit, so I have
That's true. Yes, on December 10th, I will be on the West Coast just for one quick show at a synagogue, which I forget the name of right now, but will be available.
It'll be on your website, right?
Yeah.
You can find GennaRose's website down in the description. And you mentioned historical research and podcasts, but for lore. But you have just launched a new podcast called Harlots.
Yes. So Harlots is actually under the same umbrella as Lore. It's also produced by Grim and Mild, which is Aaron Mahnke's production company. And I am the host of this one. So Harlots is a podcast about the different mistresses and courtesans who have been kind of hiding behind the scenes of history, but really moving and shaking things out of sight. And often were quite maligned. They tend to be the villains of the stories. But is that necessarily accurate is sort of the question that the podcast seeks. So each episode tells the full biography of a different mistress, courtesan, affair, etc. from world history. And it spans everywhere from like ancient China to, presidential mistresses.
Yes.
So
you can see, audience on my channel, you can see why the work of such a person would be so compelling, because there's history, there's folklore, there's, forgotten voices or silenced, ignored voices, maligned audiences. And so I really love hearing those come back from the dead, if you will. So what is coming up? I have a nifty little graphic, and of course, it's going to cover your name for a
I love
second.
it though. That's okay because my name is on the graphic, so it works out.
Yeah. So this, if I can track my movements here,
Nailed
Thistlefoot
it.
is about a house on chicken legs that's possessed throughout history, and comes to this family and this pair of siblings, and takes us on a rollicking journey, including a puppet show across the country, and forces of evil and magic and a mysterious figure and all of the good things. So a lot of you will want to pick that up if you haven't already. But what is this other creation with this beautiful cover that's on your side?
Isn't it so
I love it.
pretty?
It's so pretty.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's the illustrated, or the cover is created by an artist named Kelly Louise Judd, who's on Instagram as I think Swan Bones is her Instagram handle. But yeah, as soon as I saw that cover, I squealed. I just am in love. So yeah, I've got one right here. This
Nice.
is 50 Beasts to Break Your Heart, and it's a collection of short stories, weird short stories. So they are sort of in the same vein as Kelly Link and Karen Russell, Carmen Machado, some Ray Bradbury, Angela Carter, that whole kind of world universe of weird fiction. Kind of modern fairy tales, surrealist imaginings,
You can just
all about sort of human yearning and the ways that it can go awry. So I'm really stoked about this book. I actually wrote it before I wrote Thistlefoot, and I've just been waiting for the day when it was time to release it into the world. And short stories are honestly my real love. So this is kind of my chance to contribute to the genre that most contributed to me as a person, which, yeah, I'm really proud of it, and I hope everyone likes it.
Would you say that puppet shows are more akin to short stories because of the compactness of the storyline, or the types of tropes that are usually used or explored, or how would you separate that in one
I
swoop?
would say, I mean, I think there's puppet shows of all different lengths and forms, but what I do see as a line, sort of a link between puppetry and the genre of writing that I work in, is it's less about the form and it's more about the content and the logic of the worlds. Where in puppetry, people are often creeped out by puppets, right?
Yes, we have a mutual friend, Jenna.
We do. Jenna
Blum,
Blum
who's
hates puppets.
terrified.
She came to one of my shows because she was also in the show and
Yeah.
was so upset.
She told me, she was like, oh, how am I going to do this?
So I talk about how there's a reason for that, right? There's a reason why so many people are freaked out by puppets. And it's because it occupies this kind of weird liminal space in our brains where it's sort of alive, but it's sort of an inanimate object, and it's sort of humanoid, but it's also very much not a human.
Yeah.
And it is containing all of these contradictory elements in one form, in this way that the brain registers as what Freud would call uncanny. He has this essay about how the thing we're afraid of is not a thing itself, but a thing in a context where it shouldn't be. So
Oh.
ghost stories, we're not afraid of ghost stories where all the characters are ghosts, right? Usually it's a ghost interacting with the living. It's that chafing of the living up against the dead. And a puppet has that in its body. It's alive and it's not alive. It's human and not human. In the same way, monsters embody that same thing, which you can find that there's this fantastic essay by Theodora Goss that talks about this idea that to be monstrous is to contain these two contradictory elements. So a werewolf, for example, is animal and human. A vampire is alive and dead, and it's this chafing. And so, long story short, for me, the genre that I write in which I use supernatural folklore as this kind of metaphorical tool to look at things that make us uncomfortable, it does the same thing in the brain that looking at a puppet does.
I
which
love
is you
it. Yes.
experience a
Yeah.
chafing sensation that feels somehow heightened and thus kind of paranormal or otherworldly. So yeah, they
Did
make
you
sense in sort of they're in a similar language with each other in the way that they register psychologically, I think.
did you explain that to Jenna, and did that help her lifelong
I
aversion
think
at
I
all?
might have, but I don't know if I don't know if there's any curing her for what she's got. It's probably a healthy sense of self-preservation on her part.
Right. There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Because yours are like to like come alive and start,
Though
making
I would say,
it.
like, I feel like I have a very, a benevolent relationship with the puppets I travel with. Like, I feel like they would have my back in a pinch. Like, in a fist fight, like, Baba Yaga's in my corner.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. That's a good feeling. Okay, well, we have been chatting about all the amazing things that are going on with you without even getting to your staying in Edinburgh, which is like one of my favorite things to follow you on social media for. But I wanted to say hello to the chat, to the people who are stopping by to say hello.
Hello.
Leslie. She was very interested in seeing Bean, and he's not asleep right now. He's not snoring, but he's also not interested in moving. So I think we'll
I
have
also
better
don't
luck.
know where Vivian went. Captain Vivian Cutpurse is on the prowl somewhere in this
I love that
establishment.
name.
Yeah, Captain Vivian
Always
Cutpurse, the fiercest pirate of the Seven Seas.
nice.
Mhm.
The what part of the Seven Seas?
The fiercest pirate on the Seven Seas.
Oh, the fiercest pirate.
Yeah.
To be sure. To be sure.
Mhm.
The writing
Look
sister.
at everybody looking their little avatars and their names. Hello,
Rita,
hello.
hello. Cool Gamer. Hello.
Hello.
We've got marshmallows from personal experience.
Oh, thank
So
you.
wonderful. Snaps. Lovely to have you here. I've got some of the links that I've put in the chat, which I'll star in case we need them later.
I like that you can get everyone to pop up on here. Technology.
Yes.
Thank you. I strive for the uncanny valley. I like to mess people up a little bit. Yeah, that is fair. You do want to watch out for possessed puppets.
Ooh, don't like masks. Says Elizabeth. If I can't see your face, I don't
That
trust.
makes sense. It's a similar psychological thing. A puppet is
Yeah.
a moving. That's a good soundbite. A puppet
That
is.
is. That's a good pull quote. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. So perfect setup for our first sprint. We've each got like a prompt we're gonna do for
Yeah.
tonight. GennaRose, tell us what you'd like to bring us through.
So I'm deciding between two, and they're both good and spooky. Maybe could I ask the group what
Yeah.
they want? Are they able to chime in? Okay. So both of them are like good autumny seasonal spooky shit. So we've got one that's about ghosts and one that's about monsters. What is your preference?
Oh, okay. So I just put in a
Vote ghost or monster.
yeah, my instant poll was about wait. Are you freaked out by puppets? 75% said no. So let's end that one. Let's start ghosts or monsters. It'll take a minute because of the lag, but
That's fine. So we can just chill, think about puppets some more. I know I could have just chosen one, but they're both good, and I got to give the people what they want.
democracy.
That's right.
A vanishing thing, but Phyllis just said yes. If you can't see it, you'll see you're in private chat. If you click over to comments, you can see the comments coming in as well.
Where's comments? Exit. Oh, okay. Wait, yes, I see it. Okay. I do see the comments now. All right. How's our votes coming along?
Ghosts. Let's see.
Let's give about 10 more seconds for votes, and then whatever's in, that's what we're going to do.
I think we're going with ghosts.
All right. Well, then, here we go. So, no, it's great. This is honestly, it's perfect for us. Like, if we're imagining that we're like around a campfire, we're around a campfire telling ghost stories.
Nice.
So, I'm going to ask you to take out whatever your writing implement is, whether that's a notebook and a pen, or if it's your laptop on a document, whatever feels most natural to you. Yeah, that's right. Go get it. Honestly, I don't have one, but I'll make it happen. Okay. So, I'll give you a few moments to get in order. And then, beautiful. Once you are all ready, open to a blank page. And at the top of that page, this is kind of the preliminary step. We're not diving into the writing just yet. But first, what I'm going to have you do is write down something in your home that bugs you, that really bugs you. So maybe it's that one door frame that's like just a little bit off kilter and the door never closes right. Maybe it's a light bulb that you have to get around to changing, but you just keep
Oh,
forgetting.
I've got a perfect one. Yes.
So think of that, one thing in your home where you're just like, that it just rubs me a little bit the wrong way. It bothers me. And just name that thing at the top of your page.
All right. I got ink all over myself. Mission accomplished.
Great. I'm going to give about 5 more seconds to just get that thing down. And if there's a bunch of things like that, just choose one. It doesn't have to be, there is no right one, just yes, we are trying to scare you before bed. That's
It'll be okay. It'll be okay.
yeah, no,
Coming out of
you
your
can
own
make
hat,
your story as scary as you want. So you're the one in charge here.
Hey, Rachel.
All right. Does anybody need more time to think?
They can pause the video if they need more time. So just go ahead.
Okay, great. So I'll just keep on going. All right. So now that you have that one thing, what I'm going to ask you to do is we're going to set a timer for what, Margaret, 15 minutes, right? Yes, we're going to set a 15-minute timer, which is really enough time to sink into it. Ooh, there's a crackling fire. This is delightful.
That's the timer.
When we set that timer, what's going to happen is you're going to start writing, and what you're going to write is essentially a ghost origin story for this thing that bugs you in your house. So for example, let's say I chose a light bulb that I just keep needing to change, but it just keeps going out for some reason. Well, maybe there is a little boy named Henry who once lived in the gas lamps of the house, and he's frustrated about all of the electricity, and so he keeps slipping inside of the light bulb and falling asleep. And it makes the light bulb go off. And then suddenly I tell the story about how his father fed him hemlock, and that's why Henry died in the light bulb, and now he's sleeping in the coal bin. Who knows? Point being is, whatever this little annoyance is, there's more to it than you think. And it has some sort of a tale or an explanation behind it. Before we start, I just want to say one of the things I really love about folklore and working with folklore in general is the way that so often a folk tale will evolve organically in a community as a way of explaining something that either has no logical explanation and so is in need of one, or the explanation is too difficult to look at directly, so we would rather come up with a fantastical parallel for that thing.
Right.
And if we're aware that folklore works in that way, we can use that tool deliberately, right? We can take something very real and say, okay, I'm going to drape it in the supernatural in order to give it that explanation or that softening. Maybe this is a way for you to hate that part of your house a little less, or maybe this is a way for you to just explain it away. Whatever that may be, that is your assignment. Are we ready to go?
I think so.
All righty. Well, on your mark, get set, go.
Okay, that is a little less than 15, but I wanted to give us time to discuss. So, wrapping up, give everyone a few seconds to think their thoughts. Yes, I'll just leave it like this. Put you on the top though, so if I have comments, you won't get hidden by the comments. There we go.
Cool.
This is fun. Yeah, I was inspired by it being Native American Heritage Month, so we'll see. Did you want to go first?
Me? Oh, yes. So is this the point where we all sort of share how it went?
You can share how it went, or you can share the story. I was going to share my
Sure.
story.
Amazing. So yeah, I wrote about the fact that my house has very few closets, and so storage is just an absolute pain.
Uh-huh.
And I have all of these just like corners of shame where I just like pile things in corners. And
Oh,
I'm just
piles,
gonna-
yes. We're
yeah,
feeling
classic
these
piles. So I'm not. I guess I can read as far as I got, but it's really only beginning. Actually, I might just read the opening. I'm going to read the opening sort of
Sure.
premise paragraph. There are no closets in Thornback Manor. We call our house Thornback Manor because my roommate and I are both unmarried women over the age of 25, also known as Thornbacks.
Nice. I love it.
Yeah. There are no closets in Thornback Manor. No walk-in pantries or storerooms. Nowhere for the unused exercise bike to gather dust, or our grandmother's stand mixer to dwell until use. There is nowhere to keep our skeletons. What becomes of a house where nothing can be hidden? I'll tell you.
Oh, that's great. I love it. I'm intrigued. Thornback. Oh my goodness.
I know. Yep. No,
Yes.
we're owning it, you know.
Yeah. No, I use the I'm doing NaNoWriMo, and I have several characters who are older women. One house is a house of sisters where one is a widow and one is a spinster. So I keep having to write that word, and I feel good about that word. We're loving that word.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Absolutely. It's wild that over 25 is the Thornback, technically.
I am
But
20.
also, like, that sounds like the kind of dragon. Like, that's badass.
Yeah, yeah. So we've got Anita who's participating. She got 2 microfictions.
Ooh.
That in my house, but my annoying leaky tap was there.
Yes.
And
Perfect.
if Elizabeth was here from the last Fireside Chat, I'm sure she would talk about the leak that led to her whole floor being flooded, because that was a disaster that she's still trying to like sort out. So, okay, so I'm gonna read mine. It's about a page and a half. So, this was just delightful. Okay, I'm gonna be talking about the bathroom steam setting off the smoke alarm, which is right outside the bathroom door.
Ooh, no, that's awful.
Because it's that terrible moment where you're like, it goes off and you're naked and you're like, what am I supposed to do?
God.
All right. So this housing development is not that old, not even as old as I am. But what has been here is the cliff it sits on, staring out over the meeting of the rivers. Long ago, before the city was settled, the trees chopped, the bicycle invented. This cliff was where the alarm would be raised when a threat was seen on the horizon. A watchfire would be lit, the soaked wood able to send signals seen miles away, like a tree under siege telling its neighbors to prepare in the mycorrhizal network. The smoke signals on this cliff were important to the distant peoples living nearby in facing any invading enemy. But then the colonizers came. The trees went, the rivers slowed, the falls drowned, and many, I don't know how to say the plural of genie. Genii?
Genies.
Genies?
Is that it?
Genies of the place? I feel
Or
like
is it
double I.
Genies.
Like,
Genii.
like the genius of the place. I feel like it has a different plural than a genie. Anyway, the genies of the place of the places here turned their backs on the humans, whether peaceful or no. But a few remained, and the only way the genie of the cliff's lookout could feel seen was in transforming the magic heated water to smoke to fool the magic alarm bell machine. Alert, to arms, defend. When the residents don't take care to close the little room's door, the cliff genie takes its ironic revenge with no one to answer the call to arms, except for the few other genies who remain. But their uprising is another tale.
Dang.
That's what.
My smoke alarm used to go off at 4 in the morning, like every like 3 weeks. So it wasn't often enough that you could predict it. And it
Yeah.
was so loud. And here's the thing. So the way to turn it off, the only way to turn it off would be to flip the breaker.
Oh.
The breaker was down in the like creepy basement where
Oh
I
no.
say Henry, the little ghost boy, lives.
Oh.
I didn't just make Henry up. He was in my consciousness for a long time in this house. And great little feature of this house is the particular breaker switch that turns the smoke alarms off also turns off the basement light.
What? Oh.
So I feel you.
That's
I feel your
definitely
suffering. Yeah.
man. Yeah. So yeah.
That's nice. I'm glad you finally have an explanation for that.
Right? Yeah. The genie I'm gonna have to look that up now because I think like in the sort of romantic tradition, the genius of the place, like the spirit sort of idea of
Okay, a genie is like a jinn, which is from like
yes, that's what I'm thinking.
Jinn. So
Yeah.
that's a mix of cultural metaphors in a way.
Yep.
But
Yep.
I like the idea of like the genius of the or sort of almost in an animism context, like a
Mhm.
Shintoist kind of the conscious cliffside
Yeah.
sounding warnings.
Yeah. Uh fun.
Fun.
Noise.
Anybody else write about anything?
Yeah,
Toss
Felicia.
it in the chat.
The cat?
Chat. Toss it
Oh,
in
in
the
the chat. Yes. Yes.
Toss it at the cat.
Hopefully no one's cat is the cause of annoyance in the house, but maybe
I'm
what's the
sure
cat does.
everyone with a cat has a cat who is the source of annoyance in the house.
Well, like I've tried various things to stop scratching in various places, but that's just never gonna happen. So we
No.
just go with it. Okay. Are you ready for me to spring my prompt on
Yes.
everybody? So it's less involved. It's just a quote. So I have it in a banner to leave up to everybody. And this is something that I put down as a story idea, and then I made it more vague so that people can go more directions with it. So for some reason, I'm thinking in like Irish voice, your man can see visions when mixing two liquids together and watching them come to equilibrium. So like the thought I had was pouring milk into tea and that like cloudy sort of surfacing. It reminded me of like, forecasting via bird flight. So show us your character's talent in action. The visions don't have to be foretelling, they could be any sort of visions. And yeah, give us a scene where there's two liquids mixing together and someone seeing something in it and telling us about it.
Well, that's great.
So I will
All right.
rewind
Back
our
to it.
yes and give us like just another 12 minutes. So yeah,
Good
go
luck.
ahead and start your engines. 12:52. Save. Sorry, I'm fiddling. I'll start writing now. That's my thinking on that.
Just a moment of Viv Cam there for the end.
I love it. I love it. All right. So, since this is my first time meeting you, I figured I wouldn't go with my original idea, which was someone peeing into a river.
That's great. I thought of that same thing, actually. It's not what I used, but I also thought of it.
Oh, man. Yeah, well, I went with something else. So, shall I go first?
Sure, let's hear it.
Just want to make sure I pop up any last questions to get them in the chat because of the lag. So there we go. Okay. I think I was influenced by your book in choosing the name. Dimitri. Dimitri sighed by the stream. He'd been on many journeys, some hot and dusty, some cold and windy, but his least favorite was the one he was currently on. Warm and humid enough that your sweat didn't evaporate to cool you, but clung, making you feel soggy and disheveled. This wasn't how he wanted to arrive at his intended's door. He knelt at the stream, drinking great gulps of the cool water before shucking his clothes and diving in to find some relief. It was best when he bent over and dipped his head, his whole scalp exhaling in relief. When he blinked his eyes open, the drops from his hair melded into the stream, and a familiar tug came near his belly button, a precursor to tension, to running. Very quickly, the stream reformed, taking his sweat away with it. Dimitri had seen it, though, for a snap second, his intended's face. She was beautiful, even in grief. Never knew if what he saw was past, present, or future possibility. And by now, in his 30th year, he'd stopped reacting every time. Proceeding on his way, the shirt now wrapped round his pommel, he hoped it was merely the day he passed away peacefully before her eyes.
Nice.
Well, bite size. This is like the flash fiction we get to do on the Fireside Chat. So it's
totally. It's great.
fun.
Well, and it's nice that it's like it creates these little seeds that if you want to expand them can be expanded. I like to talk about how sometimes so when I was living in Chicago like a decade ago, I went to a writers group like this where it was like you get a prompt and you just like write a little microfiction seed like this. And the prompt that night I did the exercise. It was the same sort of thing where we just walked away with a little free thought seed, and it ended up becoming the entirety of my first book, The Lumberjack's Dove. So
nice.
Yeah. So there's potential in these.
I did see that. Is it poetry?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's why I was like the debut thing was like, wait, where's this and there's this, and I did.
It's a book length poem, so you can read it like a novel. It tells a story, but it's in verse, not rhyming verse, but it's in little prose poem snippets.
Very cool.
But yeah, that was lovely. Yes, very romantic prose indeed.
Yes,
I love him like recognizing that tug, that familiar tug in the belly button, like it's happening.
All right. I love that we both had should we make it about peeing? And we're like,
and
no.
I also respect that we both had the self-control that we were like, no.
Yes. I like it.
How do I research folklore and myths for my writing? I can answer that now and then read my little thing. So yeah, it depends on what I'm researching. I have this extensive library of folklore books that I draw from. I've got some really good ones. So like for Thistlefoot, for example, this was one I drew from a lot. Anthology of Jewish folklore. So I just read a lot of folk tales and kind of see what sticks. I also use JSTOR a lot. And I love reading about, I love reading articles by folklorists in which they kind of unpack why a story may have been told in a region or kind of the metaphorical purpose that it served. There's this amazing article I have. Oh, where even is it? I'm not sure where I put it, but it's talking about like changeling folklore, and it has these diagrams where it shows the sort of typical physical makeup of different congenital disorders, and then quotations of different changeling lore that exactly mirrors those physical descriptions.
Wow.
So just like these really cool concrete descriptions of like exactly how these stories were used either to other people or to explain scientific experiences or what have you.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't know, lots of books, lots of internets.
Nice.
Yeah, so I don't need to say what it was. I'll just read it. Okay. Sasha knows things, but only when siphoning gas. It's late and a school night, but I'm holding the hose and she's sucking gas out of her dad's car and spitting it into a bucket. It floats on water. And what Sasha didn't know before, well, she knows now. It wasn't always like this, her and Jax and I creeping around finely pruned suburban shrubbery with dollar store divination gear and a friend with a taste for petrol. But then again, things didn't used to be so bad. So bad that for just a moment, when the hose is pressed to her lips, I can see her eyes flash with that quick consideration of swallowing. But then she spits, and the bucket swirls black, blue, and purple, an alien bruise. So, Jack says, impatient, what's it say? Sasha steps back. Her lips are tight, a shimmer on her chin. He knows it was us, she says, and we're fucked.
Oh man, that's good.
Thanks.
Unexpected. See, I thought like two liquids is so general that you can
That's
really,
such a cool idea. Yeah, I love that prompt.
if only I understood fluid dynamics, I could like really, really get into it. But no, it's just magic to me. So yeah, very
Sweet.
cool.
I love
Yeah.
that.
So we had one other question, which was more about writing mechanics. Favorite snack of choice during writing sessions, or
Ooh, yeah. Okay, let's see. I mean, I love a little pastry. I'm a big like,
that's dangerous. The
oh
flakiness
yeah.
is all over the keyboard.
Well, I work in bed too, so
Okay.
I love like a little cake.
Very
Yeah,
good.
cake and a laptop and my bed is like that's all I desire in this life.
Nice.
Yeah.
Um, Leslie, I've chosen to go with gummy bears and just breaking up chocolate bars for this nano. So that's what I like allow myself per writing session. And for today, I'm very behind. So I'm tempted to count the words that I just wrote as nano words, even though they have nothing to do
Do
with the novel.
it.
Um,
I
yeah.
will say though, I think that the real answer to that is like I don't eat while I'm writing. Like I completely forget to eat. I have a really hard time like getting focused. It takes me hours to get into the mode of just
Yeah.
like clicking in and actually it working. And once I'm in it, I'm gone. And I will just like stare at the computer for hours and hours and hours and like forget that I have a corporeal form whatsoever. And that's kind of part of why I work in bed too, is I need to be so perfectly comfortable that it almost feels like I'm in a sensory deprivation tank and I'm just like a brain. And
Yeah.
then I can write.
Right.
So if I'm aware of having a physical body at all, it takes me back out and I'm here instead of here.
Right.
So I don't really eat while writing.
Yeah.
But
I think
it
I
keeps me going in life.
yes. I just tweeted something about why do I always forget that the gummy bears are consumed between writing sessions? It's never for the writing session. I get it for nano, but it's really to like get me to that place and then it's like done, totally.
Right, totally. And then
Yeah.
you get a little prize.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Um no, because by then I feel better about myself, so I don't need the prize. It's like goading me on to like
Right.
yeah, yeah. Well, I'm very excited about 50 Beasts to Break Your Heart because when you talk about magical realism, but bringing in folklore, it's like a really nice dovetailing of things that I often don't see getting pulled together. So, like, I normally read historical fiction and it's all about lives that could have happened.
Mhm.
And because things aren't the way I want them, I want to use magic to change them. So,
Right.
Yeah, when you said it's a bunch of short stories, I'm like, oh, so it's more like fabled passages. I could just drop my name in among that like list that you mentioned earlier. Because I had short stories that were kind of that sort of
Cool.
marriage of elements of desire and yet like an established story or setting. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, that's the best stuff in my humble opinion.
Mm. So it's coming out in February next year, right?
It is, yeah, February 6th, so it's sort of a Valentine's release if you really want to be like bummed out on Valentine's Day. Um, yeah, read a bunch of heartbreak stories
Mm.
to your Valentine or your bitter enemy. What are you doing for NaNoWriMo? Are you working on like one specific project?
Yes. So I'm working on a historical fantasy in the sense of a historical story that develops into something where, funnily enough, someone can see visions and they use it to try to write the situation that they're in.
Is
It
there urine involved?
There is not so far, but tonight there may be.
Hey, it's never too late.
No, it's actually newspapers and candlelight that like triggers this person's visions, and she
Cool.
sees financial futures. So it's like
Ooh, fun.
something that I don't find interesting at all, which is weird that it's manifesting in this manuscript. So
I mean, once you make something divinatory, it immediately becomes more interesting.
exactly. And so on the theory, or I can't think of the word I'm trying to, but on the theory that we need to get more interested in the details because that's where we're losing out, like going to those
Hmm.
zoning meetings or going to read the fine print to make sure we're not getting screwed. Like this is my sort of note to myself, like, yes, this sort of money, control, power things that you don't want to be part of, you really need to be part of making that decision.
And that's part of the trick of it is that they deliberately make it boring so that people
Exactly.
won't pay attention to it.
Right. Democracy? Representation? What's that? You don't need
Capitalism?
that.
Well, glad we solved capitalism. Productive session.
Tiny instance. In 1845. So we'll see. We'll
Cool.
see how it goes.
Sweet.
But you said you had started working on 50 Beasts before Thistlefoot. This
Mm-hmm.
This one's coming in February. Does that mean like you're working or drafting or cogitating on the next project right now?
Maybe.
Maybe. Do you
Yeah.
have it very close? Is it like
Oh, so I know what I'm working on. I'm only about 20 pages in, but it's a new novel. I am solidly working on a new novel. The concept, the premise is something I've been wanting to write for a long time. And soon I'll be diving in, drafting in proper. I'm basically enjoying my last maybe few weeks of freedom before I'll be shackled to this book.
ah,
But yeah, it's a New England Gothic, and it's gonna be sick in
nice.
my if I don't mess it up, which I won't.
Not
Dang
quick.
it.
Okay, and so since I've been wanting to ask this since I approached you to come on the channel, tell us a little bit about the Edinburgh stay and what you did there and how fantastic it was and like one favorite thing about it.
Sure. So
The reason
I
because the reason is because like the historical fiction that I write is 1820s, 1830s Scotland, immigrant stories, and sort of that history. So I'm very
It's the
interested.
best. Yes. It's so I actually did part of my schooling at Edinburgh University. I When I was in college, I did a year at the University of Edinburgh in their Scottish Studies department, specifically studying supernatural Scottish folklore. Yeah, it was very, very dope. And that was really what got me dedicated to being a folklorist in addition to being a writer was that
Wow.
year of study. And I went back a few times since then, but I let like 8 years lapse basically between the last time I had been there and this past summer. And then I started having these reoccurring dreams about 8 months ago or so, where first it would happen about once a month, where I would dream that I was back in Edinburgh and with my old friends. And then suddenly it was happening like twice a month. And then suddenly it was happening weekly. And then suddenly almost every single night I was dreaming of Edinburgh. And at
Wow.
that point, I was like, Jesus Christ, okay, I get it. I get it. I'm going. So I woke up one morning, bought a plane ticket, asked my old best friend from Scotland if I could come stay. And as soon as I bought that plane ticket, I never had another Edinburgh dream. again.
Wow.
So it worked. And then, yeah, so I spent August there, and I really spent it chilling out. Oh, hello.
He wants to say hello, so I'm gonna bring him up
Hi.
so we can say hello. Hi, Bean.
Hi, perfect baby.
Bean. Hi, Bean.
Yay.
Okay. Is that good? Okay.
But yeah, so my favorite thing, basically the way that I spent the month, which was exactly how I wanted to spend it, was every day I would take the bus to this little pub, and they had this little, it was a Victorian pub, really still in the form that it was in, and they have this little sealed in nook with like stained glass blocks. It was the women's section of the pub. It's basically like a little secret cubicle, and I would tuck into my secret cubicle. You can order a drink through this little window in the side of the wall that goes into the rest of the bar, and I would order a different glass of scotch each day, as recommended to me by a friend who's like a scotch expert. He had given me a list. It was like an old sweetheart who I hadn't seen in a decade, who gave me a list of scotches to try, and I was working my way down the list. I would sit in, listen to the rain, drink my scotch, and then work on these first pages of this novel that I was writing. And that was how I spent every day in Scotland, and it was ideal.
Yes. Yes. Amazing. So my sort of next goal is to hit 1,000 subscribers for the channel. I'm at 935.
Ooh,
so I'm hoping
so
to get them
close.
to the end of the year. And then as soon as that happens, plane ticket, same thing. Like
Yes.
reward.
Do it.
Yeah. So
Yeah, that's a way better prize than a gummy bear.
yes. We're going where your heart lives, right?
Yeah.
Well, yes.
Yeah. It was really nice to go back, and surreal to see this place that had clearly apparently become so deeply mythologized in my unconscious, and then to be in that space as just like, oh right, it's just a place in the world.
Is it a boggart that's actually a real mythological creature that was taken into the Harry Potter world?
Oh, I mean, a bunch of the ones in Harry Potter world. I would say most of the ones
But
in
it's the
Harry
same
Potter world.
name, and so when I came across it, I was like, "Oh, I think it's boggart," and it's someone's last name. It's like a common, not very common, but a common Scottish last name.
Oh, I haven't heard of his last name, but yes, that is I believe that is a folklore creature. But there's also I mean, yeah, most of those creatures, the mandrake root that screams like a baby, and
Yeah.
J.K. Rowling was stealing all sorts of crap and
Yeah.
making it worse.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll find some of those in your book coming out in February, which would be awesome. Creatures to inspire, creatures
Oh,
to
there are. Actually, I can show you this. This is a fun little sneak peek. I'll show
okay.
right now. So the titular story in 50 Beasts to Break Your Heart is in the form of a mythical bestiary. Are you familiar with the form of the bestiary or
I think so.
bestiary?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was like Latin monks, medieval Latin monks would compile these encyclopedias of all the known creatures. And they were also illustrated, but their illustrations were incredible because they hadn't seen most of these animals. And there were also, the descriptions were fairly allegorical. So what I did was I created a bestiary of all creatures that I made up that are also allegorical. And I enlisted my friend Bobby Detrani, who's an incredible artist, to illustrate every single one of the 50 beasts.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so every one of these creatures, here, I'll just show you.
Like a heading for each.
Yeah, I'll show
No.
you a few of them. Like,
Oh my gosh. Oh,
yeah.
no.
There's like those guys. What are some other? There's like these guys.
Oh, good. Okay, this is definitely going out to my Stygian anthology peeps because they're going to be so interested in things
It's
that will give you
really,
nightmares.
yeah, there's like whatever the hell these guys
Oh
are
yeah.
up to.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, look at
So
the sea creature. I mean, they could exist. Like it could just
you
fiction
never know. There
reality.
could be this guy there's 5 different sexes in the species, and they come together into a coalescence, but they don't have a head one, so they use squash.
Oh my gosh.
There could be that guy out there. You don't know if the Gorling is real or not. There's no way I could be a Gorling. That could be me. You
Except
don't know.
squashes ahead. So, yeah, that's super fun. That's super cool. And you had a friend do it. We love when we can
Yeah,
collaborate
yeah.
on
So
projects.
I mean, that's really one of my main goals in my work is I love collaborating with friends, and I love when making books can feel like just doing art with your friends because that's
Mhm.
what it should be. As well as like I think for any of us who suddenly gain like any kind of access to like arts industry,
Mm.
um, you want to toss it to as many people as you can.
Yeah, yeah, spread it around.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I'm
Exactly.
stoked that we got Bobby's incredible art in here. It's so, so good. They're such creepy little guys. And I
And
just
on
love a
that
creepy
note,
little guy.
yes,
If there's one thing about me, it's that I love a creepy little guy.
don't definitely not to be taken out of context on the interwebs. Oh my gosh, this has been fantastic. So thank you so much for being here today, Jenna Rose. Thank you
Thank you
everyone.
for having me. This was super fun.
Yeah, thanks for coming and for the people who did the flash in the chat. I hope that was fun. Maybe it will become a seed that becomes a story deep down in the future. You never know.
Yeah, I might have to continue mine. I liked that. The
Yeah.
one from your prompt.
Yeah. So good luck with the NaNoWriMos. Good luck with those story seeds. And thanks for stopping by. Check out Jenna Rose's links down in the description. And we'll see you on the next Fireside Chat.